We're at the first trimester of the 2025 NFL season, so it's time to take a look at a report card for both sides of the ball. And would you or would you not trade De'Von Achane? We explore here on Locked On Dolphins.
You are Locked On Dolphins, your daily Miami Dolphins podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
All right, Miami, welcome to another episode of Locked On Dolphins. It is your team every day here on the Locked On Network. I'm your host, Kyle Krabs, a lifelong Miami Dolphins fan, host of Locked On Dolphins, co-host of Locked On NFL Scouting, author of Touchdown Miami on Substack, NFL staff writer for A to Z Sports. Want to give a special welcome and shout out to our everydayers because it is your team every day. We don't just say it, we live it here on the Locked On Network. Today's episode of Locked On Dolphins is brought to you by FanDuel. Right now, new customers can bet just $5, and if your bet wins, you'll get $300 in bonus bets to use across the app. So today on the show, very pleasant experience. We're doing a report card. And this is piggybacking off of some of the work that I did over at A to Z Sports this morning. Looking at the Dolphins, they did a whole series for all 32 teams with the staff that they have over at A to Z. I obviously work on the Dolphins side of that with a primary focus. And each side of the ball gets the following acknowledgments: most valuable player, glue guy, biggest surprise, biggest disappointment, and the turning point of the last 6 weeks. And I want to get into what I thought were some of the potential candidates, in addition to who I ultimately chose with those stories. We'll do that on both sides of the ball. And then we'll get into, I crowdsourced some of the Touchdown Miami community. What would you trade De'Von Achane for, as you know, the trade deadline is coming? We did Bradley Chubb last week. It's kind of a full-on deep dive show. But given the timeliness of the calendar, and I'm OCD about thirds of the season, right? There's 18 weeks. We're through 6 of them. You're at the 1/3 mark. We got to do the report card now, right? Felt this was a good time to tuck in the Achane conversation because, from my standpoint, that's one of those ones that is a pretty short conversation unless you're going to make it hard on me as the general manager of the team in a hypothetical scenario. But we'll get to that at the end of the show. We're going to start on the offensive side of the ball with the MVP of the year so far. I thought there were probably 3 candidates in this regard. I thought MVP could have gone to either Jalen Waddle, Patrick Paul, or De'Von Achane. I thought those were the 3 guys that I thought were most deserving of consideration for offensive MVP thus far this season. Darren Waller, obviously 4 receiving touchdowns. It's going to catch your attention, but when you miss half of the first 6 games of the year, it kind of hurts your case and argument, right? Now, we will hear from Darren Waller here in just a little bit, but I ultimately chose De'Von Achane as the MVP. He's averaging 99 yards from scrimmage per game and 1 touchdown per game in the first 6 weeks. He's on pace for 17 touchdowns this season. He's on pace for, Kyle does math, 1,683 yards from scrimmage, really is what he's on pace for. So he's been outstanding. The focal point of the offense, with or without Tyreek Hill, because of what he can do in the passing game, in addition to what he obviously does in the ground game, as the player who continues to get the majority of the run out of the backfield. Home run hitting abilities there, pass catching ability there, contributions to screen game. I will say, I went down the rabbit hole looking at Jalen Waddle and his efficiency per target, right? And looking at the rest of the Dolphins players this season and how effective they have been in the passing game from an EPA standpoint, it is very surprising to me, but not surprising given where Achane gets the majority of his targets as scheme targets behind the line of scrimmage. He has one of the lower EPA per targets of any qualifying pass catcher. And that's because we're not getting the same choice routes out of the backfield like we got in week 2, right? It's a lot of flats. It's a lot of screens. We do have a select few in breakers down the field. The most recent one of those was unfortunately thrown a little behind for an interception against the Chargers. So De'Von Achane, I think the raw production, I think the presence that he provides, the gravitational pull, the fact that you can put him in the backfield and it doesn't tip your hand, the fact that you can put 2 running backs out on the field for him, it gives you a lot that you can do. So De'Von Achane was my choice. I did ultimately go with Patrick Paul as the glue guy. I considered Aaron Brewer because he's literally the glue between the 2 weakest positions on the offensive depth chart with your left guard and your right guard. So he got some consideration for me in that regard. But I went with Patrick Paul. And the reason why I went with Patrick Paul is because the retirement of Teron Armstead, and I told Teron this last week on the set, and we had a good little laugh about it. But I said, man, I wouldn't have believed you if you told me I wouldn't have missed Teron Armstead. And that's not to say that Pat Paul is Teron Armstead already, but Patrick Paul has made the absolute most of his opportunity. And that was the departure that had a lot of people super concerned because of just how much Teron meant to the offensive line. And for Pat to come in and give you the contributions in pass protection that he has, and to give you the contributions from a run game perspective. And I know the math has not been great running to the left thus far. Some of that's the tight ends. There's some assignments where Patrick Paul's got Derek Brown on him and he's not controlling the point of attack. He had another one against the Chargers where they tried to run outside to the left-hand side and Pat didn't quite secure it. But as a second-year player with 300 snaps his rookie season, to play the way that Patrick Paul has in the first 6 games of this season, it's a big relief. And that was a spot on your depth chart that you were worried about unraveling, and it has not because of the preparation Patrick Paul's put in. So I gave Patrick Paul over Aaron Brewer as the glue guy award on the report card. And we got a few more superlatives, and then I will actually give like a grade for this side of the ball. The biggest surprise. This could be a good thing or a bad thing. I think Jonas Savaianai's performance is a candidate for the surprise of how disappointing it's been. But that is a separate superlative, his biggest disappointment. So I went with Darren Waller as the biggest surprise. Just because, we did the film study when they acquired him, and I said, look, this is how I think he can contribute to the offense. I don't think he's going to be a big-time volume guy. Probably can still be like a guy who runs sit routes over top of the ball. He's been as advertised and better. And when we got to the start of the season and it's, Darren Waller had a setback, I had the same reaction to a lot of you guys. That was pretty much just like, all right, well, have we had enough of this? Has this just run its course? Because we don't know what's going on behind the scenes. And then it comes out that he had an injury setback as he was ramping up, and it cost him a few weeks. But he's been awesome. And there's a bigger story to be had about the personnel usage of the Dolphins this season. And we've talked about it a little bit. But the Dolphins ran 14 plays out of 22 personnel with 2 backs and 2 tight ends on the field, including Darren Waller. They had 2 more touchdowns out of that personnel group. They are almost 3 times as higher with their EPA out of 22 personnel than the next best team in the NFL. They're running it at the 3rd highest clip in the NFL, and that includes a season-high 14 reps of 22 against the Chargers. They are passing over 54% of their snaps out of 22. They're passing the ball because you have a player like a Darren Waller. The next highest team in the NFL, I think, is 20%. So it's a really unique element of their offense that they have been able to do, and it's been in part because of Darren Waller. And the contrast to that, or the alternative to that, was Tanner Conner. And I don't think it's a coincidence that before the Week 4 game against the Jets, the Dolphins ran 3 plays of 22 personnel, and they all came in Week 1. And they're like, well, this isn't a very productive package for us, so let's not use this until we get Darren Waller back. Biggest disappointment for me. I think you could say Tua Tagovailoa's ball security. It came to my mind to point that out, but it's the offensive line injuries. James Daniels lasted 3 plays. Austin Jackson lasted 3 quarters. Keon Smith, who's not a guard, but they made a guard, lasted a game and a half. Then Daniel Brunskill lasted a game and a half, and now it's Cole Strange who's been stepped into that spot. And all of that shuffling has now led to Savaianaya has been thrown into the deep end of the pool because you got to help the guy on the other side of the center. They're trying to support that guy because he's got a backup playing next to him at right tackle too. Really disheartening that this was supposed to be a year where you kind of got everything back on the horse, and it hasn't happened, and it won't happen again this week because the Dolphins aren't opening the practice window for any of those players, Austin Jackson and Liam Eichenberg and Andrew Meyer and James Daniels. We're not going to see any of them for another week. Going to get to the turning point of the first 6 weeks of the season. Our grade for the offensive side of the ball, get into defensive superlatives and their grade with this mid-season, 1/3 of the way through the season point report card. That's next here on Locked On Dolphins. Make sure you guys stick with us. Nobody likes paying rent, but if you must, you might as well get something for doing it. And that's where Bilt comes in. Bilt is changing the game by turning your rent payment into real rewards you can actually use. When you pay rent through Bilt, you can earn flexible points that can be redeemed towards hundreds of hotels and airlines, a future rent payment, your next Lyft ride, and more. But Bilt isn't just about rent. It's about rewarding you and your entire neighborhood. With Bilt, your rent finally works for you. You're earning points every month on something that you already have to pay. So turn your rent into rewards and start earning points around your neighborhood by going to joinbilt.com/lockedonnfl. That's joinbilt.com/lockedonnfl. Make sure to use the link so that they know we sent you. What do you get when you have a bald eagle standing on top of a silverback gorilla riding a T-Rex? Aside of the funniest mental visualization that you could think of right now, it's confidence. It's pure confidence. If you're looking for something beyond the usual pill for your confidence, it's time to meet Rugiit Go Long. Rugiit Go Long is not just another ED pill. It's a total game changer for confidence. Go Long combines 2 doctor-trusted medications in one dual-action formula, so you can go the distance whenever the moment calls. Effects can last up to 36 hours. That lasts all day, all night, even into the next day. The process is simple. You can connect with a board-certified doctor 100% online, and if prescribed, your treatment shifts discreetly to your front door. Get ready to level up your confidence in the bedroom. Head to Rugiit.com and use promo code LOCKEDONNFL for 15% off your first order. That's RUGIET.com. Promo code LOCKEDONNFL. Make sure to use the code so they know we sent you. Turning point for the first third of the season, the first trimester of the Dolphins 2025 season. Tyreek Hill's injury. Because we've now talked about this personnel package evolution with 2 backs and 2 tight ends, whether that's a speed package where the backs are Ollie Gordon and De'Von Achane and Julian Hill and Darren Waller and Jalen Waddle, or whether that's a power package in which you have Alec Ingold and Ollie Gordon, and you have Julian Hill and Darren Waller, and you have Nick Westbrook-Akine or Malik Washington. Preferably Nick if you want to play a power front, right? Like, you don't lean into that with Tyreek Hill. And we know that because the Dolphins have had such a strong pull towards having Tyreek Hill and Jalen Waddle on the field. It has been tabbed as the identifying variable of the offense at personnel. And look, with what you're paying those 2 guys, if they're available to you, yeah, you probably should pay them. But that automatically disqualifies you from playing 22 personnel because it requires 2 wide receivers to be on the field at the same time. And the Dolphins have found something. They have 40% of their 22 personnel plays thus far this season have gone for 10 or more yards or have been touchdowns. 40%. And now we're doing it more than a dozen times a game. Mike McDaniel's got to continue to lean into this, because this could spur an evolution of their offense that we have been asking for, and it may be spurred by necessity because Tyreek Hill has been removed from the equation. The overall grade for the Dolphins offense as a whole, the raw yards are down, but they're not possessing the ball. The defense is very porous. I mean, they're one of the worst teams in the league in time of possession. They're running less plays than everybody else. If you go from week 2, because they got smoked week 1. This is a egregiously bad performance. But if you go from week 2 forward, the Dolphins over that period of time are a top third of the NFL offense. That includes top 10. I think they're ninth in the EPA rushing the football. They're 10th in the NFL in EPA passing the football. I believe they're tied for 11th in EPA offensively as a whole. That includes penalties, turnovers, all that kind of stuff. They are tied for 11th in scoring offense. They've scored 27 points 3 times in 5 games after week 1. In the grand scheme of problems offensively, the offense is frustrating. The offense has areas it needs to get better. The offense can continue to lean its identity into something that I think can create more conflict, as we've talked about with some of these personnel packages. But I don't think it's the problem, right? Now, the turnovers have been a problem. The 2-minute offense opportunities at the end of games in weeks 2 and weeks 3 have been a problem. Now, in weeks 5 and 6, you successfully executed, and then the defense went out and broke your backs again. So I give the offense a C, and that's with the acknowledgement that week 1 was a tire fire, because it was. It was a dumpster fire, and you can't sit here and pretend like it's not. But it's week 1 with all this time to prep, and you got caught with your pants around your ankles, and it's very clear that you weren't your team wasn't prepared to play. That kind of goes into the coaching element of this. And we'll talk about coaches as well. We'll go to defensive superlatives next, though. The MVP for me, I had 2 candidates here, and really only 2 candidates here. It was either Jordan Brooks or Minkah Fitzpatrick. And whoever didn't get one was going to get the other between the MVP and the glue guy. I gave Minkah the MVP. Team's only interception. He's got 5 passes defense. He stayed sticky in coverage when he's been targeted in coverage. He's been tasked with moving around. He's playing with a rookie next to him in Dante Trader or a career backup in Ashton Davis. I think Jordan Brooks has his own set of challenges with the defensive line that's playing in front of him. But he's had a running mate that he had time on task with last year. And I think Minkah's probably performed incrementally in isolation. His individual execution assignments has probably been a little higher. So I went with Minkah as the MVP. I think he's been as advertised since he's got here. Now, the unit, both the secondary and the collective defensive unit, has not been as advertised. But that's compartmentalizing, right? It's compartmentalizing individual performance versus collective overall team performances, and that's where you get into the conversation of problems versus solutions and so on and so forth. Minkah's my MVP choice. Jordan Brooks, therefore, is the de facto glue guy. Team captain, good leader, playing with hard circumstances around him that make it harder for him to do his job. No excuses, continues to play tough. Missed tackle rate is below 5%. Is he playing the best football of his career? No. Is the environment around him would the environment around him to allow him to play the best football of his career? Probably not. But he's making a lot of tackles. He's not missing tackles. He's covering up for teammates' mistakes. He still can do a lot of things. Jordan Brooks, the glue guy. I was disappointed how few options I felt I had for that one. The biggest surprise for me is Chop Robinson. Where has Chop Robinson gone? He has not played more than 24 snaps in a single game since week 1. He's under 40% snap share for the season. And part of that is when he gets his opportunities, when we get free runs off the right-hand side, we're not finishing plays. He has a 25% missed tackle rate this season. It's way too high. The work against the run game's not been super consistent. They haven't earned the right to rush the passer with enough consistency. When he's been out there, he hasn't made his plays, and he hasn't played the point of attack the way that he needs to. Now, I would still be pro if I were the Dolphins, finding a trade partner for one of your edges, preferably Bradley Chubb, but I'm sure Jalen Phillips is going to have a lot more interest, and we'll have to do that one unless he gets traded before we have a chance to do it on one of these Tuesday shows after one of these losses that we keep rolling in. I want to find and facilitate and force him onto the field. He has to mature and play through his struggles and apply and correct. But the biggest surprise, he was supposed to be the face of the pass rush room after what he did in the back half of the year last year. And we can't even get Chop on the field with consistency. The biggest disappointment, man, this could be Anthony Weaver. This could be the pass rush as a whole. This could be Chop Robinson. This could be the cornerback room. I went with Zach Sieler because Zach got the big contract this year. And when you get the big contract, as the saying goes, heavy is the crown. The expectation is that you're going to be the steward for this youth movement and bring these guys through and lead by example when you get a 3-year, $64 million contract extension with the team that goes through 2029. Zach has not been the player that we've come to know the last several seasons since he got the contract. And I don't have great context for why. I know Zach's a consummate professional. I know Zach does all the right things. I don't know if he's pressing. I don't know if he's, that was Anthony Weaver's explanation is when we had him out there with two rookies at the same time, kind of coordinating before the snap took away from his ability to anticipate what was happening. You've seen some flashes of it. You saw some flashes of it against the Jets, but he was not good this past week. The game that the Dolphins just played against the Chargers. And it's frustrating. I think that's, for me, the biggest disappointment that you have is Zach Sieler. The turning point on the defensive side of the ball in the first 6 weeks, a coaching grade, a defensive grade, Devon Achane, and the potential, what would you need to trade Devon Achane? We're going to get into all that next here on Locked On Dolphins. Make sure you guys stick with us. NFL season is in full swing. FanDuel has an offer you do not want to miss. Right now, new customers can bet just $5 and get $300 in bonus bets. If you win, that's right, pick a bet, put down $5. If it hits, you'll unlock $300 in bonus bets to use across the app. So whether you like playing parlays, player props, team totals, live lines, you name it, they have it. It makes watching football even more exciting when you got a little something on the action for yourself. Whether you're a casual fan or love going into all the stats, FanDuel has the game day experience that will make your football watching experience better than ever before. So what are you waiting for? Visit FanDuel.com to download the FanDuel app today and get started. All right. Turning point on defense. The first Saturday of training camp. The Kader Kohou injury was a big one. They've gone from Kohou to Mike Hilton to Jason Marshall to Cornell Armstrong. Now they got a safety doing it. That injury and the domino effect, because I do think you've had a player in Rasul Douglas who's settled in and is playing good football for you at one corner spot. Your nickel player and your other outside corner with Jack Jones. Jack Jones has been very up and down. You kind of expect that. This is a system for him that requires him to be more physical in the contact window than he's accustomed to. He's not an inside player. He's not a nickel player. They've tried a bunch of different players in that spot. They have not had success with it, and it has really hurt you, in my opinion. So as a whole for the defense, you're getting walloped on time of possession. You're getting walloped on percentage of drives that end in scores. You're getting walloped in points allowed in totality. 29 points per game. I would give the defense an F because you have players, leaders that are well compensated that have not met the performance expectation. You have lack of cohesiveness. You have lack of improvement where like maybe one area is a catastrophic flaw in one game and then you go to the next game and they play better at that regard, but then they forget how to tackle because they're trying to strip the ball out. They say, oh, well, now we need to be better stripping the ball out. That's no problem. And now you get gouged on the edges like you did against the Chargers when they're on like OTs 4 and 5. And I remember Anthony Weaver earlier in the season, at some point, you got to draw a line in the sand and say, I'm going to set the edge. all of our problems can be solved by more violence, right? Well, he said that, and then this team went out and gave up 400 rushing yards in 2 weeks. It's an F for me. It really is. Um, and I don't use that lightly, but I expected some transition. I did not expect um, with the talent that does exist on this roster, I did not expect expansion roster caliber defense through 6 weeks. And that's what you've got. As a result, you extend the coaching element of this, and I would give the coaching grade a D. There's been some things that have gotten better. They addressed the late in the play call issues. They addressed the personnel communication issues. I do think they have been better in that regard. I think they've been better with the timeliness of burning timeouts, although they just had an issue in this past game where they had to burn a timeout. I think they had 12 on the field. You had communication issues in that regard. You've had shortcomings in all three phases in big spots. I would say it's not as bad as the actual execution of the defense. The defense has found some traction in facilitating and creating turnovers. The offense has shown some pliability, but on the whole, it's not been good enough because I don't think the team is playing to the individual talents that exist. And that's before you get into the leadership concerns and the direction of the team as a collective team, where, Mike kind of came out yesterday and condemned what Tua said on Sunday after the game. And the guys who talked at the press conference podiums, they all kind of said, like, yeah, we're keeping it in house. Teron Armstead on the set last night with Robert Hunt said, like, this can't happen. And this kind of stuff is happening, and it's happening way too often as far as getting a microphone put in front of your face after a loss and the coaches and players not being on the same page. So I have offense with a C, defense with an F, and I have coaching with a D thus far through the first trimester of the season. I'll only pull up my phone because I don't want to have it open on my computer just because it's on. I get the push notifications, and then you guys are hearing it, and you're wondering what's going on with my phone blowing up, or my computer blowing up. So having it on my phone is easier because I don't get the notifications. So I'm reading off my phone what I crowdsourced for. What would you accept from another team in a trade offer for De'Von Achane? And the responses include a 2, a 3, and a 5, all in 2026. A second-round pick, a first round pick or kick rocks, first round pick or bust. One of like 3 players I absolutely would not trade. 2026 first and a 2026 7, or a second and an equivalent player. And everybody started yelling at each other. I'd need 2 first-round picks. If it's anything less, there's no point. Then they got into it with each other, talking about nobody's trading 2 first-round picks for a running back, in which he said, yeah, that's the point. I don't want to trade him. CMC package, got to be a 1 or a 2 and a 4. A 1 and a 4, 2 2s. Somebody said Xavier Howard. Yeah, that's funny. CMC package, first round pick or get out. A 2 and a 4 or 5. So seems like the general consensus is a second plus a mid-round draft choice. Some are higher, some are lower. I'm personally on the higher end of that spectrum. And I understand like the concern with Achane and paying a running back and what that timeline looks like. He's in year 3. He has next year in 2026. You have the franchise tag at your disposal. What is do you want to know what the franchise tag total looks like for next year upcoming, just to kind of put it in a ballpark? Because I know no position's salary has gone higher than or has shown less growth, I should say, than the running back position. Running back is now dead last. The projected franchise tag for 2026 at running back is $14 million. De'Von Achane, with what he currently has on his rookie contract, he's going to get adjustments for playtime and performance. That's probably going to put him around $5 million next year after the performance adjustments. But he just turned 24, so he's in literally the prime of his career. If you're looking at from the trade deadline forward, if you had him for the rest of this year, next year, and then the franchise tag year in 2027 at a minimum, you're probably talking about 3 years for $22 million. Like, economically speaking, it's not bad. And by the time 2027 rolls around, when you would need the franchise tag, unless you do get a contract extension done with De'Von Achane, I mean, you're talking about a percentage of cap that's going to be modest at bet, like 5% of the cap, and all your dead money for all these players that you're getting ready to you've either flushed out of the system, like the Jalen Ramseys and the Teron Armsteads of the world, and the Xavier Howard, because you got Howard money this year that's still on your books. The Tyreek Hill transaction and what that ends up looking like for you. All of that dead money is going to be out of your books. Like, your caps by 2020, your cap situation by 2027 is going to be into a new build. Like, next year's probably going to have even more dead cap than this year. You have to pay somebody. And man, like, I know he's a running back, but this perpetual cycle of offloading talent and going back to square one and building it back up, a rebuild doesn't have to get rid of all the good players on the roster, especially the ones that are 24 years old. And you have multiple years of guaranteed control over at a price-friendly rate. Like, you would have to give me a Goldilocks offer for him, Jalen Waddle, Patrick Paul, Aaron Brewer, Jordan Brooks. Like, those are the guys for me that I'm not really interested in talking business for them, because I view those players as players that, and some of them are only under contract through the end of 2026. Some of them are on second contracts that are mature and could potentially command more money. Some of them are kind of at that 27, 28, where you're talking into 2027 and beyond. You're asking yourself, are they still going to be in the prime of their careers? And I get it. But a guy like this, 24 years old, and I think he can have a longer than average shelf life if you use him in the right kinds of ways. And man, like, I would really love to start creating the habit of retaining your good players that you acquire and not giving them away for a lottery ticket. And the draft is the pipeline, but you've got a bird in the hand versus one in the two in the bush, right? Like, what's worth more to you in this regard? This is a good player in the prime. He's outperformed my expectations from pre-draft. He's an elite player. He's an elite player, 24 years old, multiple years of fair rate or good value contractual control on your team. The position's not great, but he has unique versatility at the position to contribute more. I'm not interested in talking business there unless you blow me away with what you're offering. That's just my opinion on it, though. Let me know what you guys think. Kyle Krabsky, keep it locked in right here on Locked On Dolphins. It is your team every day. Appreciate you guys for checking out the show. I am out of here. Make it a great rest of your day. I'll talk to you all again tomorrow.